So welcome back to Bluegrass Mandolin Lessons, where we learn to play bluegrass on our mandolins. So thanks for checking this video out on beginner bluegrass chords. Being that this is a bluegrass specific mandolin channel, I am not going to show you kind of basic beginner chords. I want to show you kind of the basic foundations of playing rhythm in bluegrass, the chop as it's called. So for example, you may see some people play, if you're playing some song, some pop song, rock song, folk song, something like that. It's very like guitar-esque, which is fine, but you don't really play that in bluegrass. In fact, pretty much your role in bluegrass rhythm is to be the backbeat, is to be the snare drum, if you will, of the whole band. So, for example, we would play a G this way. Okay? So, that's a G, but we don't play that G. We play this G. Alright, so let's go over some basic shapes real quick. So the most basic shape, I'll call this the G shape for now, that we'll play is the G shape. Here we go. So I mentioned that this was a G chord, right? So that G chord is a part of this, but for the chop, we can't get the chop down here, because we can't choke the strings out, you can't get that kind of, that bark is what, most mandolin players go after when they're thinking about chops. So the way that we get around that, and the way that Bill Monroe got around that, was by playing a chord shape like this. So he's actually playing all four fingers on the neck over, I don't know, 7 frets, 6 frets at least right here. So it looks a little bit daunting. So it can be a little bit challenging. So check that out. So that's the G chord there, and then we're going to go over here. We're going to grab this G, and we're going to go way over here and grab this D. So we've got a D up here, a G, and then a B, and another G. So that's our G chord. Okay? So if I was to press everything down, it would sound like that. Now the trick to playing chords like this is you're not going to play them classical guitar style, where you're putting your finger on the back of the neck and you're, doing like this, because, man, that just hurts. So the way that we do this is we actually put the neck in the palm of our hands, and we kind of, point our thumb, basically put it on the top of the mandolin neck, pointed towards the headstock, with our mandolin neck in our hands like that. So you should be able to kind of squeeze the neck like that. Okay? So if you do that, that makes it a lot easier to finger the chord and to get a better sound. Okay? So that's our chop chord. That's our main chop chord. So it's this G shape right here. And a lot of bluegrass songs are in G, so you're gonna be hanging out here a lot. But that's our main shape, the G chord, okay? So, in order to get the chop sound, okay, that's not the chop sound. This is the chop sound. Okay? So it's all attack, it's just bump, bump, bump. And so the way we do that is we do it from kind of choking the chord. So we're going to squeeze down the chord and then immediately kind of let off of it. See my fingers? So So I'm squeezing about the same time I'm hitting it, and I'm letting go immediately. And you want to get like the barkiest sound you can out of it, if that makes sense. You don't want to do like that thing. You want it to be kind of where there's some bass response in your mandolin, if you can sense that. So the chop is a combination of that squeezing and the right hand playing the chord. And so when you are doing the chop though, you don't necessarily want that. You don't want all the strings. You might, there might be a bit like on a turnaround where you want to kind of ring out a little bit, but for the most part, we're kind of focusing on these bottom strings. The first two, maybe the A string. So you could just honestly that would be an effective chop as well. That is way more important than this guy down there. So what I've noticed is you kind of have a tendency to like over imagine what your role will be when you're just playing by yourself. But when you get into a band environment and a jam session, you'll realize pretty soon that you just do minimal to keep a good backbeat. So, and that's it. Because if you start to get out there too much, you're going to get in the way. It's going to get messy. So as bluegrass musicians, we have to kind of always be conscious of the mix of where you're sitting in the band. If you're not playing lead, then you need to sit in the back. You're not supposed to be banging away at your chop chords. You're just you're finding your own little groove in the instrumentation, and you're staying there. So it's in terms of rhythm with the chop chord. So we talked about it being on the backbeat, which means it's on the ands. So it's on the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So why don't you try to do that really slow? So we'll slow it way down. And what we're going to do is we're going to, on the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, we're kind of just going to hit this bottom note here. You don't have to be very precise. It's more of a timing thing, a timekeeping thing. So you can hear a bum, bum, bum. And that's the way we kind of keep a rhythm, because if you were only focusing on backbeats and you were going, that would be hard to stay on beat, stay on rhythm. So you want to get yourself into a groove that you can sustain. So the best way to do that is to do kind of a false strum, or like a pick, almost like you do on a guitar if you were playing a typical bluegrass guitar rhythm. So we would go, so just hitting string, chop, string, chop, string, chop, string, chop. So try that. So here we go. We'll go real slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So that's the basic chop. That's the way that it works. And it's very simple, but it's very effective. So it's really cool to hear that kind of added to the groove of the band. So the mandolin plays a very important role, I would say, in the whole bluegrass ensemble in terms of rhythm, which is kind of surprising, being that it's such a small little instrument, but the chop is very powerful. So it's kind of cool the way that came about. So let's look at some other chords that you would use in this this type of bluegrass rhythm. So this is our G chord. Before we move on to other chord shapes, though, I want to show you something about it. This is a movable chord shape. So really all these chop chords are, because we're playing in closed positions, meaning that there's no open strings. So G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C. So you can kind of move it wherever you need to. So the best way to tell what chord you're on there is kind of look at this original G down here. That's a G, we know, right? So then if we move it up a half step, it becomes a G sharp and then an A. And so really we're kind of looking at that, and then we're just adding that other first and fifth on top there, or on bottom. Okay, so when you're playing G's and you're playing A's and you're playing, you know, B's or B flats, if you do play that, that's kind of the preferred, or that's an option. But definitely for G, you're going to play that in A. Okay. The next shape, the next most important shape that you'll play is what you could call the C shape. Okay, so we get that from where a C chord is. So our C chord is the same shape as our G chord, except it's just on the second and third string. So we're on this C note here and this E note. And then we have a G down there. Okay? So that's our C chord, right? So in order to make that a chop chord, we're basically just gonna find where we can put our finger on this bottom string, and we're gonna put it on this C, because it makes sense, right? So C fits in the key of in the C chord quite naturally. So this shape is a 3-note shape, is a 3-finger shape. It looks a lot like the G, right? But really we're just moving it up. So, and this open string down here, the E string, we don't pay that any attention. So, because we talked about the chop being all about these chords, or all about these strings right here. Okay? So we just have those strings. We don't need this little guy down here. So the C chord, though, is also a movable chord. So it's a, you know, we can consider it basically a closed position because we're not even playing this top E. So we got a C, we're gonna move it up a half step, got a C sharp, we got a D sharp, an E, an F, okay? And then we can keep going if we wanted to, but you don't want to go up too high because you really want to get that barky sound. So choosing the right inversion or fingering is really important when figuring out which chop chords you're going to play. So the G chord, movable. C chord, movable. The third chord that you would play usually with those two is kind of a version of a C chord. So this ends up being the 5 a lot, like the 5 chord when you're playing songs. For example, say a song is in the key of G, and so the G is your 1 chord, the C is your 4 chord, and the D is your 5, okay? So you could play G, C, D, C, or G. All right, and so that's a good bit of moving, because because I have to go up here, and I have to go back down here and get all 4 fingers. Not impossible, but a little challenging. So to make that a little easier, this other fingering is something that we can do. So instead of playing the D chord up here in this C position kind of thing, we're going to grab the same notes, okay? So we're going to take these same notes, but we're going to basically do them with these fingers, okay? So we're going to go like that. And we're going to go like this right here. So that might look ridiculous, but the reason we do that is because if we're in this G chord, all we have to do is take this finger here and this finger here and just switch them. So we're going to go, ring finger is going to go down one, and middle finger is going to go down a string, or whichever way you want to talk about it, but to this string, and it's going to go up a fret. So that switches just like that. So you see, I'm not having to move my hand at all. I'm just moving these 2 fingers. It's probably a little bit of a challenge to get your fingers used to doing that. So maybe you just want to do something like this while you're sitting on the couch. But if you put all that together, it looks pretty cool. So it's and that's kind of a bad example for that, because in that case you might want to go to this version of it because you're already in this one. Where I find this is helpful is when you're in the G or you're in the 1 chord and you want to go to the 5. So a lot of songs will play the 1, and then they'll kind of do a turnaround on the 5. So this is helpful for that if you're that kind of thing, instead of having to go. That's a lot more stress inducing. Okay, so those are kind of your main chop chords. Your G chord, your G shape rather, your C shape, and we can call this a D shape, why not? But really it's a 5. It's like the way you would play a 5 chord. Those are your 3 main shapes, and those will get you most places. I'll do another video where we kind of dive deeper into chords and into kind of structuring chords and dealing with different inversions and different fingerings, and there's other ways to get chops as well, because not all those chords are as clean. And even when you're dealing with minor chords, there's different ways to get chops with those. So we'll look into that in a future video, but these 3 will get you 80% of the way. There you go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. I hope that you learned something. If you did, please subscribe and hit the little notification bell so you know if I post a video. If you play bluegrass on the mandolin, this is the spot for you in terms of resources and learning and song tutorials. So be sure to subscribe and come back and check it out. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below, and I'll try to get back to you regarding chop chords or whatnot. So I'm here to help you on your journey as well. All right, well, good luck trying those chop chords out at your jam session, and I hope to see you again soon. All right, till next time, cheers.